All right, so the last section we're going to discuss is the 2014 grant proposals and some of the changes that you can expect to see. Some of the grants we've already opened the process on. For example, the foundation grant, that's currently open right now. As Kim will discuss, the 2015 school safety grant is open right now. But what we're going to discuss right now are some of the changes you can expect to see, and also give you an overview of what the proposals look like, so you know what to expect when you go to fill out one of these proposals that we administer. So the first grant that we administer and that we'll talk about is the Homeland Security Grant Program proposal template. What we have over there on the left side of the screen is actually the template itself as it looks in the Indiana Grants Management System in the IGMS. And then over here on the right, what we've done is identify for you what each of these categories actually have. As you can tell, most of these are drop-down menus. Most of these have pre-identified choices that you will make on the Homeland Security grant funds. I'm going to take a second right now and just address Andrew's questions. Matching funds must be future spending that is already budgeted, which will take place during the grant spending. You can't include past spending on school safety items, correct?
No, they can go back to July 1.
With the school safety, that is actually our caveat. For the school safety grant, because that is a state grant that's overseen by a board, the board actually made the decision at their last board meeting to allow basically backdating on match spending. So because the money and the grant program became eligible July 1st of 2013, the board did say that you could backdate your match to July 1st of 2013 for the grant program. Now this is a huge caveat. Only grant program that does it. Don't expect that to be in the future, but because it was the first year and because there was some hurdles to be faced with matching funds, the board did decide to backdate to the July 1st, 2013 date for matching funds. Well, and the reason the July 1st date was not shared was because that actually wasn't identified until they made grant awards, I believe in October. At their October board meeting was when that decision was actually made, once that was brought up to them. If you have additional questions on that, Kim would be happy. If you have examples that you need looked at to see if it qualifies for the match funding, we can take those one-on-one, so Kim would be happy to address any of those.
They can still go back if they have qualifying match to July 1, 2013.
Okay.
If they want, they can still go back.
If you speak up.
Like I said, we'll go ahead and take any of those issues offline with you. So Kim will be sure to work with you on any of those matching issues and see if maybe we can deal with some of those issues from the matching issue. Okay. So going back to the Homeland Security grant proposal, for any grant proposal you do in the Indiana Grants Management System, it will always ask for your applicant info and your primary point of contact. You want to make sure that you always keep your contact info updated in the Grants Management System. This afternoon, we're going to go over that Grants Management System and how to use that system. But the important thing to note is that you do have your contact info embedded in the system. So you want to make sure that you're using that system that feeds into this proposal template. So make sure that you use the contact info in the Grants Management System to feed into your proposals. The next section, we hear the new and ongoing project for the Homeland Security proposal. This is going to be really important for any future funding because, as you know, funds are decreasing. So if you're wanting to start a new project, you're going to need to justify why you're starting a new project. You're going to need to use those narrative boxes to really define the need and state why you're starting a new project with limited funds. Section 3 down here, the proposal description and overview, this is really the meat of the Homeland Security grant proposal. as you can tell, there are 3 sections in there where we have narrative boxes. The other drop-down menus are actually based on what we have to ask from USDHS. So those are largely passed on from our federal requirements. But the narrative boxes, anytime you have a narrative box in the proposal, you will have 2,500 characters. Now this throws some people off, but 2,500 characters is roughly 1 page single-spaced. So it's quite a good amount of space to be able to state your case in these different narrative boxes. So if at any point you're concerned about meeting that character limit, you can always type it in Word and copy and paste, but just know that you do have room for a few paragraphs. It is about 1 page single-spaced. So section B is your project summary narrative. This is what we talked about this morning with the strategic view. This is where you want to talk about the project from start to finish and what goals you expect to see and what outcomes you expect to see. It's also where you're going to put your overall vision of your program. In section I, then, we talk about area of need. This is the narrative that you use for that gap analysis. This is where you talk about the shortfall that this project will address or the area of improvement that's needed. You use that space to really define in the weeds that gap analysis and that area of need. Section J, the challenges and risk section, we actually have this as well in most of our proposal templates. This is not to try to catch anyone off guard. The purpose of this section is more twofold. The first reason we ask this question is to ensure that you, as the grant writer or as the one requesting the grant funds, have thought through the project as a whole, and that includes a realistic view of any issues or concerns that could come up. It's also your chance to tell us any mitigation efforts you've made in those challenges or risks. So let's say, for example, you have to have a lot of people at the table to be able to get this project done. Whatever the project is, you have maybe 5 or 6 different agencies. Let's say you're wanting to put on an exercise, and you have 5 or 6 different agencies that will need to be included and active participants in the project. Maybe in this section you can tell us that you realize that it can be a challenge to get that many different agencies in one room to keep things on a timeline, but tell us what steps you've taken to mitigate that, or what steps you've taken to anticipate any of those challenges. So that's the first reason we ask for that information in that section. The second reason we ask for the challenges and risks information is really from a grants administrative perspective. If you know that you're not going to be able to start spending the funds 3 months into it, or you know that you're going to need at least 9 months to spend the money, or let's say, for example, you know that it's going to be iffy with the time frames if you can get all the money spent. From a grants administrative perspective, we want to know that information ahead of time. We would like to know if it's going to be a challenge for you to spend the monies within the time frame, for example, so that we can work with you one-on-one on that issue. You've let us know ahead of time that that's going to be a concern. So that's really why we asked for that challenges and risks section to be completed. Like I said, all of the narrative boxes, you have 2,500 characters, so more than enough space to fully state your case. One thing we did in 2013 for our Homeland Security grant funds is when we submitted or when we sent out our call for proposals, not only did we include a grant guidance, but we also included the score sheet for those grant proposals. So what we wanted to do was make the process as transparent as possible. There was a subcommittee who reviewed and scored these, and ultimately it was up to Director Hill to make the funding choices, but every grant proposal was scored based on this score sheet. So what we wanted to do was make it transparent to our districts to see, here's the information we're looking for. If you incorporate this information in your proposal, you have a better chance of getting a higher score because you've obviously incorporated everything that we've asked for. So just so you're aware, we will continue to do this in the future. We're going to use this as a best practice. When we send out the Homeland Security grant call for proposals, we will also send out score sheets. On the flip side, in 2013, what IDHS did was also put aside a pot of funding that went specifically to counties. In the past, we had been giving money out largely to our Homeland Security districts across the state for the past few years. While that was fine, a lot of counties felt that they had specific county needs that were not being met. Things like improving their county emergency operations center and other just county-based projects that didn't really fit in with the district concept. So in 2013, Director Hill set aside $300,000 to be divided up and to be competitive county-based proposals. So what we did was we took the district proposal template and we just modified it a little bit to incorporate some additional county-based questions. For example, we asked about county strategic plan and how your proposal fits in with that county strategic plan. We also asked about approval by county commissioners. If you are going to be receiving a county-based grant, do your county commissioners, are they on board with that? And then the last thing we included was any attachments you wanted for the county-based grant, supporting documents, minutes from the meeting regarding the approval for the county commissioners. We wanted to just tailor it a little bit to be more county-specific. Now, when we first sent out the call for proposals on county-based grants, we originally did not have a cap set for those proposals. We had determined that if a county wanted to put in for $50,000, knowing that the pot for all 92 counties was $300,000, then they could do that. It would be up to the subcommittee and Director Hill to narrow that down. The problem was we had we had very overwhelming response to the county-based proposals, and we had some counties that were putting in proposals that were even more than the entire pot of funds for the whole state, more than the $300,000. So the decision was made to go back and put a $10,000 cap on the county-based proposals, and that was to ensure that at least 30 counties then would receive this funding. More if obviously the awards were less than $10,000, but we wanted to make sure that we could give out as much money as possible while still maintaining the integrity of the projects. So there was a cap put on the county-based proposals after we sent out the call for proposals. We do anticipate, most likely in 2014, to follow this process again. Now, whether or not the funding for county-based proposals will be the same, we don't know, because we don't know what our 2014 Homeland Security grant funds will be. But it is something that we anticipate to have open again for 2014. As with the district, we included the score sheet, largely the same, but a little bit different based on counties. For example, question 1, is the project supported by county commissioners? Obviously, that is county specific. So we sent that out again for the transparency factor so that the counties knew what they would be scored on for this project.